There are abandoned places. There are hidden places. And then there are places that were never meant to be found at all. Not lost. Not forgotten. Sealed. Sealed with stone. Sealed with iron. Sealed with earth. Scripture. Ritual. And fear. Across history, human beings have done something deeply strange. When they discovered something too valuable, too powerful, or too dangerous, they didn't always destroy it. Sometimes they did something far more unsettling. They built a door, and then they made sure nobody would ever open it. Tonight, we are not talking about ordinary locks, secret rooms, or buried treasure in the fairy tale sense. We are talking about 6 forbidden doors, 6 thresholds placed between the world we know and something someone, somewhere, wanted erased from reach. Some were buried under temples. Some were hidden inside mountains. Some were sealed by kings. Some by priests. Some by people whose names didn't survive long enough to explain themselves. But all 6 leave behind the same question. What was so important that locking it away was not enough? Why were these doors protected not just from thieves, but from time, from curiosity, and perhaps from us? Let's begin with a door that was never shut in a palace, or a vault, or a tomb. It was shut under an entire civilization, in the middle of a dead desert plateau, far from trade routes and modern roads. Satellite imaging revealed the outline of a circular complex beneath the sand. At first, archaeologists assumed it was another ruined settlement. Foundations, storage pits, broken walls. Nothing unusual. But then excavation exposed carved pillars. Then a descending corridor. Then a second ring of stone. Then relief so precise and so sophisticated that the site suddenly stopped behaving like a primitive settlement and started behaving like a message. The deeper they dug, the older it got. And the older it got, the more advanced it looked. That is the first thing that should not happen. History is supposed to move from simple to complex. Crude tools become fine tools. Rough symbols become writing. Small shrines become great temples. But this place moved backward. The highest layer was plain. The lower layer was magnificent. The lowest visible chamber was impossible. Massive stone columns, astronomical markings, polished black floor panels, and a stairway descending toward a limestone slab fitted so tightly into its frame that not even a knife blade could pass through the edge. Behind that slab, scans indicated empty space. Not collapse, not rubble. A chamber, and then came the truly disturbing part. The entire complex had not been ruined by war, flood, or earthquake. It had been intentionally buried. Carefully, methodically. Layer after layer of sand, gravel, crushed clay, and stone fill. Not dumped in panic, but placed with control, as if the builders were not destroying a sacred site, but putting it to sleep. Why build a monument beyond the needs of your age, and then hide it with your own hands? Officially, the answer is ritual closure, ceremonial burial, cultural transition, but those are elegant labels, not explanations. Ritual for what? Closure from whom? If this was sacred, why erase it? If this was knowledge, why bury it? And if this was treasure, why hide the door so completely that even memory wouldn't know where to look? Because maybe what was behind that first sealed slab was never meant to be inherited. Maybe the people who built it reached a point where preservation became more dangerous than disappearance. And if that sounds dramatic, remember, we have seen civilizations fight wars over gold, over land, over water, over scripture. But to bury an entire sacred complex just to keep one lower chamber inaccessible, that takes a different kind of fear. A fear of what opening the door might release or reveal. And this is only the first door, because the second was not buried under sand. It was hidden in a shaft so narrow that no adult human being could crawl inside. And at the end of that shaft, waiting in the dark, was a polished stone barrier fitted with metal that should not have been there at all. Imagine crawling through a stone tunnel no wider than your shoulders, rising at a steep angle through the inside of a mountain observatory abandoned for centuries. No windows, no No room to turn around, just rough-cut walls, ancient dust, and a passage built with such precise geometry that even modern engineers would struggle to explain why so much effort went into a space no person was ever meant to stand inside. At the end of that shaft sits the second forbidden door, a polished granite panel. 2 metal fixtures embedded near the center. No inscription, no hinge visible, no handle from the outside. And beneath, according to resonance tests, another void. The observatory itself had long been dismissed as ceremonial architecture, a place for priest astronomers to watch the sky, record solstices, and assign divine meaning to planets. That is the safe explanation. The museum explanation, the kind that fits neatly on plaques and tour brochures. But the shaft ruins that story. It is too narrow for ritual use, too exact for symbolism alone. Its angle aligns not with sunrise, not with moonlight, but with the position of a star that occupied a critical point in the sky thousands of years ago. Whoever designed it wasn't making decoration. They were targeting something, and then they sealed it. Why place metal fittings on a granite barrier inside a passage nobody could naturally access? Why construct a tunnel with mathematical precision only to end it at a door? And why, in later records from the region, do we find references not to a chamber of worship, but to a chamber of keeping? Keeping what? No one knows, because every attempt to continue beyond the first panel has been delayed, redirected, or buried in administrative silence. The site remains under review. Access remains restricted. Research remains ongoing. In other words, the door remains closed. But if the second door was built to guard a chamber, the third door was built to erase a library. Deep inside the oldest wing of a mountain monastery, behind a fresco wall blackened by candle smoke, workers restoring damaged plaster discovered an outline that should not have existed. Straight edges of seal-laid arc, stonework, older than the surrounding structure. When they removed only a small section, they found timber behind masonry. Not support beams, not fill. A built barrier, a door walled over from the outside. The monastery records mentioned a silenced room. Just once. No description, no inventory, no reason. That single phrase would have been meaningless, if not for what came next. Buried in an unrelated ledger from the same century was an expense entry authorizing wax, lime mortar, and iron brackets for the final closure of the lower archive. Not relocation, not cataloging. Closure. Why would monks wall off an archive instead of moving its contents? Because moving books preserves them, sealing them, removes them. Scholars studying the monastery's surviving texts noticed something else. Several major theological arguments appear in summary form, but their source material is missing. It is as if entire branches of thought once existed in full, then were amputated, leaving only references behind. Not destroyed publicly, hidden privately. If the room behind that walled door contains manuscripts, they may not hold treasure in the conventional sense. No gold, no jewels, no royal crowns. But information can be worth more than any vault. A manuscript can bankrupt a dynasty, expose a lie, collapse a doctrine, or prove that an institution was built on an edited version of its own past. Gold makes men greedy, documents make them afraid, and fear seals doors better than iron ever could. 3 doors now. One buried by its builders, one hidden in a shaft aligned to the heavens, one erased inside a monastery wall, and all 3 suggest the same thing. People do not go to this much trouble to hide emptiness. But the 4th door was different, because the world actually opened the outer vaults around it, and what they found inside was enough to make the last door even more terrifying. If the first 3 doors were mysteries, the 4th was proof. Proof that sometimes, behind sealed stone and iron, there really is something extraordinary waiting in the dark. Beneath the ruins of a river palace once ruled by excavators uncovered a stairwell descending below the floodline. The lower chambers had survived because they had been encased in clay and silt for centuries, protected by the same river that destroyed the city above. When pumps cleared the water and debris, the first vault appeared Tenasakon. Then, Atir. Inside were ceremonial masks, plated in gold, carved ivory ledgers, seal rings, silver ingots, lacquered chests, and hundreds of trade tablets recording transactions in spices, gemstones, rare oils, and military contracts. This was not a symbolic cache. It was a state treasury, a financial heart preserved underground. And then the excavators reached the last corridor. At the end stood an iron door blackened with age, banded by horizontal locking ribs and set into stone harder than the surrounding foundation. The frame had been reinforced from both sides. The threshold had traces of resin, ash, and an unknown mineral compound that seems to have been poured into the edges before hardening. It was not just locked. It was sealed. Symbols etched into the iron showed ships, crowned figures, scales of judgment, and one repeated emblem above all others. A closed eye. That matters, because in the palace culture above ground, the closed eye was not a symbol of sleep. It meant restricted knowledge. Royal knowledge. Knowledge punishable by death if copied. In other words, this was not merely a vault. It was a vault for something even the treasury was not allowed to display. The discovery triggered international headlines. Hidden wealth. Lost empire. Priceless relics. Documentary crews arrived. Investors funded preservation studies. Historians called it one of the most important archaeological finds in a generation. And yet, the last door was never opened. Officially, the reason was structural risk. The chamber beyond might be pressurized. Opening it could collapse the corridor, or flood the compartment, or damage fragile contents. These are fair concerns, real concerns, but they do not explain why access logs to the lower site became classified, or why a preliminary inventory of the first vaults vanished from public records, or why multiple researchers later stated, carefully and off-camera, that the most valuable objects were not the gold pieces, but the tablets no one was permitted to publish. What was written on them? Trade routes, tax records, diplomatic secrets, evidence that the kingdom's wealth came from something darker than commerce. Empires are not remembered by what they hide. They are remembered by what survives public inspection. Anything that stays behind a sealed iron door belongs to a different category. It belongs to the part of history that power does not want translated. Here, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. The buried temple hid something older than its own civilization. The star shaft hid something too deliberate to be ceremonial. The monastery hid texts that may contradict official memory. And now the River Palace hides documents inside a treasury behind a door marked with the symbol for forbidden knowledge. One case can be dismissed. 2 can be coincidence. 4 is a system. Because once you start looking for sealed doors, you realize history is full of them. Not random locked rooms, but deliberate barriers placed at the exact point where curiosity becomes dangerous. And the 5th door may be the most unnerving of all, because this one is not in a desert, not in a palace, not under a monastery. It is buried beneath ice. And the strangest thing about it is that the ice around it refuses to behave normally. High in the frozen north, beneath the remains of a stone chapel built on a cliff of permafrost, survey teams discovered a cavity below the foundation that should not have existed. The chapel itself was small, wind-cut, and half known mostly to local fishermen and a handful of historians who believed it had once served as a waypoint for traders crossing hostile sea routes. It was never famous, never wealthy, never strategically important, which is why what lay beneath it made no sense. Ground-penetrating scans showed a staircase descending into the ice, ending at a rectangular structure carved not from frozen earth, but from fitted stone blocks. Deeper thermal imaging suggested an enclosed chamber behind a vertical slab. A door. Not natural. Not accidental. A constructed threshold beneath one of the least remarkable buildings imaginable. The first descent revealed something even stranger. Every wall in the staircase was rimed with frost except the door. The slab was cold, but not frozen. No heavy ice bond. No full crystal lock. In a place where metal cracks from exposure and breath becomes needles in the lungs. The door remained unnaturally clear, as if the surrounding cold respected a boundary it could not cross. That alone would have made the site famous. But when samples were taken from the air near the threshold. Researchers recorded elevated traces of ancient smoke particles, resin vapor, and preserved organic fibers. Something had been burned here. Something had been stored here, and the chamber beyond, by all indications, remained sealed tight. Why would anyone build an insulated stone room under a remote Arctic chapel? A burial vault is possible. A relic chamber is possible. An emergency cache is possible. But then local oral history complicated everything. Generations of coastal families passed down a warning that the chapel was never meant to protect people from storms. It was built, they said, to mark the place where the voices were put below. Not demons, not monsters. Voices. Records. Testimony. Something spoken or written, then hidden under stone and sanctified under a house of worship. That sounds mythical until you notice the architecture. The lower chamber predates the chapel by centuries. The chapel was added later, directly above it, almost like a disguise, as if a religious structure had been placed on top of an older sealed site to control how future generations interpreted it. And suddenly the question changes. Maybe the chapel was not the sacred building. Maybe the door was. Authorities closed the site after the first season, citing environmental instability and preservation concerns. Again, reasonable explanations. Again, perfectly logical on paper. Yet, no full thermal report was released. No chamber probe was approved. No second descent occurred. The official position is patient caution. But history has taught us something uncomfortable about patient caution. It almost always means the door stays closed. Now, step back and look at what we have. A buried chamber, a star-lined shaft, a walled archive, a sealed treasury, a frozen threshold hidden below a chapel. Different continents, different climates, different civilizations, different motives at least, on the surface. And yet every path leads to the same final act. A door is built, a warning is created, access is controlled, history is interrupted. Which brings us to the sixth and final door, the one people in the region do not describe as locked, or sealed, or hidden. They describe it as waiting, and if the stories around it are even partially true, then this last door was never designed to protect treasure. It was designed to protect the future from whatever the past chose not to destroy. At the edge of a dead volcanic valley stands the broken shell of a city abandoned so long ago that even its original name has not survived. The outer walls are fused by heat. Streets disappear under ash and black glass. Whole districts look less ruined than interrupted, as if life did not slowly fade there, but stopped in a single violent chapter no one was left to finish. Beneath the central citadel, explorers mapping old drainage channels found a descending passage cut directly into volcanic stone. The tunnel narrows, bends twice, and ends at the sixth forbidden door. A pale slab of mineral-rich rock, unlike anything else in the valley. Smortas Bone, fitted into a frame of black basalt. No carvings on the front, no royal seal, no religious symbol, just one line scored across the threshold in a script nobody has fully deciphered. Not keep out, not sacred, not treasure. The closest translation anyone agrees on is much worse. Do not return this to the light. That sentence changes everything. Treasure is brought into the light. Knowledge is brought into the light. Relics, archives, crowns, contracts, maps, scripture's history survives because something returns to the light. So what is sealed behind a door that specifically warns against that? Air probes found trace chemicals inconsistent with the valley's geology. Resonance scans suggest nested compartments beyond the slab. Not one chamber, but several. And fragments recovered from the outer tunnel show something even more disturbing. The city's final construction phase was not expansion, but containment. Walls thickened inward, corridors were narrowed. Drainage routes were blocked. Masonry was reinforced around the central descent. The city did not build toward the door. It built against it. Something happened. There's something important enough that the final generation spent its last resources, not on escape, not on defense, not on rebuilding, but on making absolutely certain that whatever lay below would remain in darkness. This is the point where modern instinct rebels. We are taught that every mystery should be solved, every archive digitized, every chamber opened, every silence broken. Our civilization runs on disclosure. Data is power, access is progress. Information is freedom. But the people who made these doors believed the opposite. They believed some things become dangerous the moment they are uncovered. Some truths do not liberate. They destabilize. Some discoveries do not enrich history. They rewrite it so violently that the world built on the old version cannot stay standing. That is what connects all 6 doors. The buried temple suggests forgotten knowledge older than the story we tell about civilization. The star shaft suggests precision with a purpose we still do not understand. The monastery wall suggests edited memory. The iron treasury suggests documents more valuable than wealth. The frozen chapel suggests testimony deliberately buried under sanctity. And the white door in the ash suggests the most frightening possibility of all. That at least one civilization looked directly at what it had created, or found, or learned, and chose burial over legacy. Maybe every sealed door is empty. Maybe every chamber contains nothing but dust, insects, collapsed shelves, shattered jars, and the ordinary disappointment that follows centuries of myth. That happens. History is full of anticlimax. Most walls protect nothing. Most vaults hold less than the imagination deposits inside them. But not always. And it only takes one real door. One chamber with one document, one device, one record, one confession, to force us to admit that the past may not be primitive at all, only selective. Selective in what it allowed forward. Selective in what it erased. Selective in what it locked behind stone and left for the future to fear. So the real question is no longer what lies behind these forbidden doors. The real question is this: who decided humanity was safer not knowing? And if they were wrong, then opening the door changes everything. But if they were right, then maybe the most advanced thing ancient people ever built was not a temple, or a palace, or a tomb. Maybe it was a lock, and somewhere, even now, beneath sand, beneath ice, beneath scripture, beneath ash, the doors are still closed, waiting for someone curious enough to open them, and wise enough to wonder if they should. And maybe the most dangerous thing is not what's behind the door, but the moment someone decides to open it. If this story stayed with you, if it made you question what should remain buried, then you already understand why this journey matters. Subscribe to our Explorers, because here, we don't just uncover history, we step into the questions it tried to lock away. And now I want to hear from you. Would you open the door? Or leave it sealed forever? Tell me in the comments. Because curiosity opens doors, but not all doors were meant to be opened.